My name is Ava Santos. I'm 33. The night my mother typed "You're embarrassing" about me in the family chat, I decided I would never audition for my place again. 6 weeks later, I walked into my sister's wedding as the sponsor. If you love a story like this, hit subscribe and stick with me. The group chat lit up while I was folding towels on my couch. Aunties, cousins, my mother, my sister. The usual swirl before a big family event. This time it was Leah's wedding, my younger sister, the one who always had a way of walking into rooms like they were built around her. We were choosing dresses for the entourage. My sizes always came last in these conversations, if they arrived at all. I had sent 3 options: clean lines, deep navy, fabric that forgives without pretending it needs to. The chat spun for half an hour about florals and bows. Then my mother wrote, "Mom, not Ava's. Too tight, too shiny. She's embarrassing. I don't want this on the stage." For one long second, I thought she'd mistyped. Then I saw the dots, the edit, the backspace. She sent it anyway. I didn't type. I watched the balloons pop above other people's apologies for her. She didn't mean it like that. She's stressed. She loves you. You know that. A cousin texted me privately. She crossed a line. Bless her. That line had been chalked and redrawn for years. Leah pinged me next. Leah. "Avs, you okay? I'll call Mom." Me. "No. I'll call myself." But I didn't call. Not yet. I did what I always do when the room feels rigged. I stood up. I walked. The hallway. The stairwell. Outside to the corner where the air smells like the bakery that opens at 5. I breathed. I counted to 10. I named the feeling. Not rage. Not hurt. Clarity. When I came back up, I took a screenshot. The chat. The word. The timestamp. I dropped it into a folder on my phone labeled Proof. I keep a folder like that for my own spine, not for the internet. Some receipts are not for spectacle. They are for standing. I texted Leah, "I'm coming to your wedding. As myself, in a dress I choose." She replied with a string of hearts and a nervous face. I could hear the teeter-totter in her voice even through emojis, caught between love and learning to have a backbone with Mom. I didn't need her to pick sides. I needed her to be happy at her own wedding. I also needed to stop orbiting around a woman who thought my body was a public comment section. Here is the part I haven't told you yet, the part my mother pretends not to know. 12 months before the wedding, I left my corporate job and launched a little company. A quiet one. I make non-alcoholic sparkling teas for bars and venues that want an inclusive menu. No sermons. Just a beautiful bottle that lets you raise a glass and still drive your grandmother home. It started with 2 cafes and a food truck, then a hotel, then a convention center with an events director who actually read the label. Orders became a rhythm. I hired 1 person, then 2. We rented a small space with a walk-in cooler that smelled like citrus and ambition. I had not bragged to my family. I had learned that the quickest way to turn a joy into a brawl is to mention it in a room where people are still writing you as their favorite old version. I'd said only, "Work is good. I'm busy." They nodded and asked if I'd lost weight. I said I'd lost sleep and gained a forklift driver named Ron. Back to the chat. Back to the word. I put my phone on the nightstand and made tea. I wrote a sentence on a sticky note and stuck it to the fridge. "I am not your spectacle." Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my calendar. My next delivery was to the Belmont, a wedding venue with a ballroom the size of a First Chance. I was scheduled to refill their dry bar package the following Thursday. I scrolled. I stared at the name on the contract. Event manager, Claire Abbott. My sister's reception would be there too. I did not hatch a petty plan. I did not craft a humiliation. I did something calmer. I looked for the most grown and most effective way to change the air in a room. I wrote Claire, "Hi Claire, it's Ava from Lark and Lilt. Love the last run-through we did with your bar staff. I saw you have the Santos Ruiz wedding in 6 weeks. That's my sister. Can I schedule a tasting with you and Chef? I'd like to sponsor the entire non-alcoholic program that night. Full coverage, cold storage, glassware, service training, and the signage. No brand shouting. Just good drinks and dignity. I'll send the scope and a check by Friday. Claire wrote back in 8 minutes. Yes. And bless you. 2 days later, we were sitting at a standing table in the empty ballroom at 10 in the morning, tasting blackberry Earl Grey bubbles and a ginger lime fizz that brightened the eyes. Chef tasted, raised an eyebrow, and said, "People will drink this because it's good, not because you're trying to teach them something." My favorite sentence. I went further. I offered to underwrite the water stations, extra staff for the champagne pour, and 10% off the late-night snack so the kitchen could pay proper overtime. I printed small menus with the header, "A toast for everyone," and no logo, just a line at the bottom. Beverage service sponsored by Lark and Lilt for the Santos Ruiz wedding. I paid for chair rentals that didn't pinch, for 2 benches in corners where you can breathe and still feel part of the room, for a ramp to a side patio that had always been an afterthought, not a pity gift, a fix. When the checks cleared, I slept for the first full night since the chat. Mom called that Sunday. "We need to talk about your dress." "No," I said. Calm. "We don't." She huffed. "You always make it difficult." "I make it clear," I said. "That's different." "I'm your mother." "You are," I said softly. "And you typed I was embarrassing. You put that in writing and hit send. That's a thing you did, not a thing I am. I won't argue. I won't plead. I'll see you at the wedding." Silence. She tried a new door. "What are you wearing?" "A dress. Navy. Like I said, it fits my life." She tisked. She hung up without a goodbye. I stared at the screen and let my heartbeat return to the speed of recipes and lists. Every night that week I walked. I didn't count steps. I counted breaths. I didn't ask my body to become smaller so my mother could feel bigger. I asked it to carry me through a day I could love. I ate rice with garlic and eggs because it always makes me feel like a morning can be saved. I went to the warehouse and stacked cases with Ron, and we laughed about faulty labels while the cooler fogged our glasses. I met with my little team, me, Ron, and Tori, and told them about the sponsorship without the family drama. "We're doing it for us," I said, "because this is what we do. We make room." They nodded and got to work. Tori designed a slender menu card you could hold without feeling like you've been handed homework. Ron taught a Belmont bartender how to open our crown caps with one hand. On rehearsal week, I arrived at the Belmont with crates and a calm plan. Claire walked me through the run of show, where the water would live, where people who didn't drink would go without being exiled, which staffer would own the ramp and smile like it was always there. "Can I ask something personal?" Claire said, eyes kind. "You can try," I said. "Why sponsor a family wedding when your family might not be your best ambassadors?" "Because I sponsor rooms," I said. "Not opinions." She pressed her lips together like someone deciding what to keep and what to let go. "I wish more people thought like that," she said. "I started doing events because I loved the moment where a room realizes it holds everyone." "Same," I said. We clinked tasting glasses like a secret handshake. At home, Leah's world was its own tornado. Florist, fittings, seating chart wars. I showed up when she asked. I ironed ribbons. I ordered boba when bridesmaid sugar moods crashed. I never raised the chat comment because this was her joy, and I refused to hang my mother's words over her altar. The night before the wedding, I packed a tote. Flats, tape, lint roller, safety pins, a little sewing kit with 2 needles already threaded because panic never threads well. I printed one extra copy of the paid invoice for the sponsorship and tucked it into a folder labeled "Just in Case." Not for a fight. For my peace. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A very short text from Mom. "Wear a wrap." I turned the phone over. I didn't answer. When my alarm went off, I was already awake. The sky was pale and honest. I tied my hair back, clasped my grandmother's small pearl studs, and zipped the navy dress. It hugged like a good chair. I looked in the mirror and said the line out loud, the way I always do before a hard day. "You are not a performance." Then I left for the venue I was about to walk into as both sister and sponsor. The Belmont lobby was bright and quiet when I stepped in. White flowers, floor polish, a staff member arranging programs in a fan shape that made my order-loving heart feel seen. I checked the bar. Our bottles stood cold and dark with tiny beads at the glass necks. The menus sat in silver stands. The benches were in place. The ramp looked like it had always been there. Claire waved me over. "Everything's ready," she said. Then she lowered her voice. "Your mom is a lot, but we've got this." "My mom has always been a lot," I said. "Now I'm a lot too, just in a different direction." Guests arrived in bright pairs. Cousins in jewel tones. Uncles with ties already loosened in anticipation. Leah appeared in the side hallway like a lighthouse in silk. She looked at me and made a sound that had been mine since childhood. It was the sound she made when I arrived at school after her bad day. It was the sound of knowing your person showed up. "You look like a whole person," she whispered. "Not a prop." "So do you," I said. We hugged. We fixed her veil. We breathed the same breath once for luck. Then she was gone to the ceremony, and I took my place in the second row on the aisle, where the light caught faces mostly, and only a little bit of doubt. Mom sat opposite me. Pale dress, perfect hair. Mouth set in a line my father used to call the straight edge. She glanced at me, then away, then back. I saw the calculation. Would this be a fight? I did not meet her in the old ring. I looked at the arch. I smiled. I placed my hands in my lap the way you do when you know you have a job, and it isn't this. The ceremony moved like water. Vows that sounded like grown people. Laughter that unclenched shoulders. I cried the way I always cry when two people decide out loud in front of witnesses that they will hold each other. It never gets old. At the kiss, the room exhaled. We stood. We clapped. The music lifted. Staff opened the side doors to the terrace and transformed this place the way only people who believe in rooms can transform a place. Cocktail hour began with a small miracle. A woman in a burgundy dress walked toward the main bar with that half-apologetic glance I know too well. She hesitated, scanning for a quiet place to ask for water. I moved. I met her at the corner before the apology reached her mouth. "Can I get you a blackberry Earl Grey spritz?" I said. "Or ginger lime with mint?" She blinked. She smiled like a person who had just been offered a chair after an hour standing. "Blackberry," she said. I handed her a glass that looked like a party and tasted like a decision. Her shoulders dropped. She laughed. "I've never felt included at a bar," she said. "That's the point," I said. "We host joy like everyone belongs." Next, a group of groomsmen came for seconds with the kind of pleased surprise that makes me believe this work matters. A great-aunt asked if she could have her sparkling tea in a champagne flute, because it makes my hand feel fancy. Of course she could. A cousin who had stopped drinking last year let his wife take a sip and then claimed his own glass like a prize he didn't think he'd win today. The space changed. The default changed. No one was banished to a sad corner with a plastic cup. No one had to announce a reason for not drinking. No one had to feel like their body, big, small, fragile, strong, was in the way of someone else's plan. It was just a wedding with more ways to cheers. Mom approached the bar with two of her friends. I watched out of the corner of my eye because I am done with performative flinching. She read the menu the way a person reads a stranger's handwriting. Then she picked up one of the little cards and saw the line at the bottom. Beverage service sponsored by Lark and Lilt for the Santos Ruiz wedding. She stilled. Her friend leaned in. "What a nice sponsor," the friend said, generous and clueless. Mom's eyes rose to the bar. She saw me behind it, not bartending, just watching the arc of the hour. She walked over with the energy of a person about to ask a question she hasn't rehearsed. "What is this?" she said. "A bar," I said, "and a menu. And a wedding." She lifted the card. "This sponsorship." "That's my company," I said. I wanted the room to include everyone. "It's what we do." She stared like she was counting new numbers on an old ledger. "You paid for this," she said. Not quite a question, not quite a tone I had heard from her before. "I invested in the room," I said. "For Leah. And for people who don't drink. And for staff. And for anybody who needs a moment on a bench and a drink that isn't a conversation about their choices." Her mouth opened, closed. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't ask," I said. "And sometimes I prefer to do the work before I narrate it." Her friend, unaware she was standing in the documentary, clinked her glass against mine. "Delicious," she said. "The ginger." "Thank you," I said, because that's the correct response when someone compliments the thing you built from 3 a.m. spreadsheets and an invoice printer that jams only when you're already late. Mom still held the card. She turned it over. Blank back. She looked like a person peering into a door she'd never noticed in her own house. I didn't fill the silence. She had made me stand in too many of them as a kid. Let her have this one. Then she did something I wasn't ready for. She reached out and touched my sleeve. A small, careful press of fingers to fabric. "You look nice," she said. The kind of nice that tasted like an apology trying to learn new vowels. It wasn't enough. It was better than before. "Thank you," I said. "So do you." We stood there like two planets learning a more generous orbit. Then the coordinator called us to dinner, and gravity released us like a bell. Place cards slid guests into their scenes. I sat with cousins who passed the bread before the gossip. Laya and her new husband rotated like happy comets, touching shoulders, laughing the laugh that makes everyone feel like part of the picture. Dinner moved cleanly. The toasts started. Bless went first, voice steady and bright. She told a story about Leah and me and a box fan in July and how sisters learned to share air. People laughed. They cried. She raised a glass, sparkling tea, and said, "To joy that holds everyone." I did not plan to speak. I had sponsored the room, not the microphone. But Claire touched my shoulder. "We have a surprise," she whispered. "The couple asked if you'd accept it." The band leader announced a new moment. "Tonight's reception sponsor made this easier for everyone," he said. "The couple would like to thank her." Leah's eyes found mine. She lifted her glass. She gestured toward the stage. I shook my head once. She tilted hers back. And I understood. This was for us, not for the internet. She wanted it recorded in the room where it happened that I had been the opposite of embarrassing. Not because I had paid, because I had hosted. I walked to the mic. I kept it short because long speeches are for the sent and the saved, not the living and dancing. "I'm Ava," I said. "Laya's sister. Some of you know me. Some of you are meeting me with a glass in your hand. Either way, hi. I just want to say two things. First, we made sure everyone here can raise a glass. No explanations required. Second, love is better when rooms are kinder. That's it. eat, dance, take care of each other. Applause rolled across the tables like a tide. I stepped down. Mom was standing near the edge of the dance floor, watching the crowd watching me. She didn't clap loudly. She clapped enough. We are building new sentences, my mother and I. Sometimes one word is what you can afford. The rest of the night moved like a remedy. People drank and didn't, and no one asked why. The benches hosted 3 mini reunions and 1 nervous breakdown that ended in laughter because the person didn't have to leave to repair. The ramp brought an elderly uncle to the patio where he told stories he had been saving for people who moved at his speed. Chef ate his break like a king. Staff smiled like they weren't hurrying into smoke. Near the end, Leah found me again. Her eyes were soft and fierce at once. "Thank you," she said, "for the menus, the benches, the way the bar felt like me." "I love you," I said. "That's the speech." She nodded. She turned to go. She turned back. "I heard what Mom wrote," she said quietly. "I was in the chat when she typed it." I deleted it. She posted it again. "I'm sorry." "It's not on you," I said. "And I didn't come to perform a rebuttal. I came to sponsor joy." She kissed my cheek. She wiggled her fingers in the air. Our code for truce. At last call, I stood at the back of the ballroom and took a slow look. The tiles, the flowers, the unbroken line from doorway to table to terrace, the staff tucking tablecloths, the last cousins reliving the last 2 hours like they might never sleep. I held my keys. I breathed. I let the word my mother used lose its teeth and fall to the floor where a broom could find it. Mom appeared on my right. She looked tired and beautiful. She looked like a woman who had found a story she didn't write. "Thank you," she said. The second time that night. "You're welcome," I said. "I shouldn't have said that," she said. In the chat. The words were heavy. They were new. "I was afraid you'd take attention. But you made attention into comfort." "I'm always like this," I said. "You just haven't wanted to see it." She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them. "Maybe I'm learning," she said. "Good," I said. "Learning is allowed." We stood together and watched Leah dance with our father. The room glowed like a thing you can hold. Mom touched my elbow again. Small. Not the old grab. The new check-in. "Can we talk later?" she said. "After the weekend," I said. "When the air is quiet." She nodded. She left me with the last song and the staff's soft clatter. At midnight, I locked the cooler with Claire. I packed 2 leftover cases for the kitchen staff to take home. I hugged Chef. I washed 1 glass because he tried to, and I wanted him to see that I see him. I said goodbye to my bench. I took my tote with the threaded needles and the lint roller and laughed at how much of this night required none of it. At home, I slipped off the dress and stood in the kitchen with my keys in my hand. The sticky note on the fridge had curled at the corner where it said, "I am not your spectacle." I smoothed it down with my palm. I made toast. I stood at the sink and ate it because nothing tastes better than toast at 1 in the morning after a day you don't have to recover from. Before I slept, I opened proof. I looked at the screenshot of the message. I did not delete it. I did not need it. It is not a trophy. It is a weather report from a storm I walked through. The next afternoon, I sent Claire a thank you and a bonus for her crew. I Venmo'd Chef because people say they'll remember and then forget, and I don't want to be people. I texted Leah to send me her favorite photo. She sent one of me laughing at the bar, head tipped back, a glass in my hand filled with blackberry bubbles. I saved it. I set it as my lock screen. Not for vanity, for memory. Here is what you should know about the days after. Mom came over the following Thursday with a bag of mangoes, and her old voice caught on a new thing. We talked for an hour. She cried once. So did I. She didn't apologize with poetry, but she accepted the invoice of what she had done and did not argue the amount. I set boundaries like a person who had paid in full. She left with 2 cases of ginger lime and a promise she would serve them at the next party because it was nice to see people relaxed without mess. We are not a movie. We are a ledger that finally balances. We are a mother learning a new language while her adult daughter stops translating. We are better. That is enough. And Leah? She sent a postcard from her honeymoon that said, in her precise handwriting, "Thank you for making my wedding feel like me. That is the noblest thing anyone has ever said about the work I do." Today, if you come to a wedding I'm anywhere near, you'll find a menu that greets you without a quiz. You'll find a bench. You'll find a ramp that belongs like a staircase. If you listen close, you'll hear one line under the music. A line I say to myself, every time, under my breath, like a promise and a prayer. Host joy like everyone belongs. That's it. That's the story. That's how a daughter who was called embarrassing walked into the room as the sponsor, not to take it over, but to set it free. If this held you, follow or subscribe so I can tell you the next one.